Welcome to Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes. This is a list video on characters to prioritize for performing solos. We're not going to cover any GLs here. GLs can solo. This is to highlight other characters who are very useful for maxing out banners, giving you more flexibility for Grand Arena. And especially because we're on the horizon of a new season of 3v3, building out solos can be faster routes to having a deeper roster that has more options for counters. This video is not going to have a specific order. It's part of the larger philosophy of this channel being a repository of information, and it relates back to a methods video where I gave my thought process on how I determine valuable and high priority relics. Those being relics that are dangerous and punish your opponents, and solos are a part of that. They are by nature low investment. One character capable of taking out 5 instead of building out a whole team of 5 characters is very efficient. It gives you a ton of flexibility. It allows you to deploy counters differently, and it's a shorter route to making your roster stronger and more dangerous. And that kind of efficiency is what I emphasize here on this channel. Go after those Gear 11 characters to build out your roster quickly, but then that lets you save your relic materials and your Gear 12 materials for the relics that truly matter and make a big difference. We are starting this list off with Wampa, whose Omicron has quickly become a near universal one. And if you delayed putting this one on, you should really consider making it one of your next Omis, because it's been a while since we've seen 3v3. And that's mostly because 3v3 was broken partly by Sith Eternal Emperor, and there just wasn't many ways past him. The Wampa Omicron seems to be one of the tools CG has given us to solve that problem. In 5v5s, Wampa is great against Iden Versal teams, General Grievous. At Relic 3, he works pretty well. At R5, he's pretty safe, and every level above that, he becomes even more dangerous. And over the next several weeks, I'm going to be working to determine the minimum relic levels where I feel like he works in that GL context. It might just be Relic 7 or Relic 8 or higher, but I'm going to try and limit what relic levels I put on if I can. Here are general mod targets. Think of these as guides. Most of my characters are modded off of the information from SWGOH. Where they don't, I'll try and point them out, but you'll want to confirm on your own. I may not remember every single one. There are different philosophies and options on characters, and not every player has the mod inventory in depth to mod every character correctly. And several of these characters, even on my roster, are not modded ideally. You just do the best you can with what you have. In the case of Wampa, some players use a Tenacity Cross or a Speed Arrow. As you increase relic levels, there's an argument for those mods. At lower relic levels, I like the health mods because they keep your Wampa alive during the key part of the battle where you're still stacking up those stats. At higher relic levels, that is not as much of a problem. He has so much starting health that you can get larger benefits from that Tenacity Cross or additional speed. Jedi Knight Luke, and with him I think we're going to add a little bit more structure to this list. We're going to be doing safer solos up front and the riskier solos near the back. He's a character you would see me use a whole lot more in a solo context if I didn't always need to put him with Jedi Master Luke. He's a great solo character though, and one I expect to be using a whole lot more in that capacity in this upcoming season of 3v3. He's great against Iden Verso, First Order, all those Galactic Legend bridge teams, those GL prerequisite characters that are set on defense because they have relics on them. And he'll do well against those low-level teams that players use to pad out their defenses. Old Republic, Ewoks, Phoenix, and he does all this primarily because of his unique, but also because of his leadership. His unique adds a ton to what makes him a solo threat. When he's damaged, he gains turn meter and offense. When he's attacked out of turn or critically hit, he gains speed, and that combines with his leadership that lowers opponents' speed to his base speed, and he's immune to stun and fear. With Jedi Knight Luke, there is more variation with how to mod him. Depending on how you use him, he's going to be modded differently. When you're using him for solos, you're going to be using him as a leader. And when he's a leader, you want him to be slower because of how his leadership works. Generally though, offense and crit chance is what you want. I, however, don't like to change my mods on my characters. I'm not going to be remodding him for a 3v3 season, so mine is not modded as slow as he could be or as fast as he could be. Instead, I'm looking for more of a sweet spot where I can use him as a leader or as a member of a Jedi squad, depending on the situations that I'm confronted with in a Grand Arena context. So if you want to look at ideal ways to mod him, look to other players. This is how I like to mod mine for that flexibility. But in general, offense cross, crit damage triangle, those are the key pieces. From there, speed arrow or offense arrow. And I like to, on offensive characters, make sure that the offense related mods are 6-dotted. I don't have the cross in this case, but I do have the square. General Anakin Skywalker, another solo champion, especially in 3v3s. He beats Night Sisters and Iden Verso. Any of those pesky teams with revives, he crushes. Gas makes those simple by preventing revives on his leadership. Plus, as a solo character, he's counted as a full 501st squad, so his unique hero with no fear conveys and gives him 100% counter chance, 50% crit chance. He can't be critically hit and gains turn meter. I'll show you my mods in a moment. This is from SWGOH. Health and offense, crit damage triangle, protection, cross and circle, speed arrow. That is what is the majority of the player base's mod set. That's not how mine is currently modded. Mine is still modded off of an older philosophy on how to have him modded, and part of it is I just don't have the depth and quality of offense specific mods as I would like to have, and I've been pretty happy with the performance of these particular mods because these are still good mods and he's still able to perform the way that I want him to perform as a solo character, and I can slot him into those Jedi lineups and still function well enough for me. So far, the solo characters covered have been great because they are massive attackers who can counter and do high damage. Malak is the first tank, and he's a great character at solos because of his survivability, his recovery, and his damage. The more he's hurt, the more dangerous he gets, with stacks of Dark Infusion stacking his offense, and his unique inflicts fear when he's critically hit, controlling the opponent, making the solos easier. He's a common Padme solo character. He can solo plenty of teams, especially teams that don't have a lot of debuffs or do high damage or try to do damage through percent health attacks. But he's one you haven't seen me use very often because he's such a great defensive character that it's difficult for me to pull him away from my defensive strategy. But in 3v3s, you're going to be seeing me use him as a solo option far more frequently. Malak's mods are straightforward, and my mods are in line with the overall modding philosophy, which is based on how his unique Jaws of Life works. It converts all protection into health. That's why you see protection primaries on the arrow, triangle, and circle, and those have all been 6-dot mods for me, and you want to have him have as much tenacity as possible. That's why they're tenacity sets with a tenacity cross. Nest is one of the great solo characters in the game, and she's a great solo character because of how survivable she is, her constant recovery, and her stacking damage. At Gear 11, she can already handle most Ewok teams. At Relics, she can handle a whole lot more, including certain Padme lineups. You've seen me regularly use her against various GL bridge teams, Rebels, First Order, Particularly, I use her frequently against those Phasma lead teams that appear. So much of what makes her great is her unique fighting instinct, which gives her counter chance, and when she's damaged, she gains crit chance and bonus protection. When she dispels a debuff, she gains stacking, crit damage, and health steal, which ensures that as she counters, she becomes more and more of a threat. In terms of her modding, you want to make her as tenacious as possible. That means tenacity set with the tenacity cross. You also want to make her as slow as possible so that she has as much time as possible to counter and get that protection up. And because of the mechanics of protection up, how it converts health into that protection up, you're going to put health primaries down. That's the arrow, the triangle, and the circle. In terms of the 6-dot mods, I don't have all of them, but it would be those health primaries and the tenacity, because those are the mods that are going to convey the most benefits to her character. Kylo Ren is a character that has a very specific use. He basically solos one team, but he solos that team very well. He solos the Old Republic. If you aren't going for or don't have SLKR, Kylo is one of those characters that feels like a detour and a distraction. He kind of takes a lot of gear, but because of how common the Old Republic are on defense, he's an essential relic character to punish your opponents foolish enough to still set the Old Republic on defense. He's one of the reasons I think this list is a worthy exercise, because plenty of players know what characters can solo, but they still delay the relics that make great solo characters. And when I do roster reviews, I see it. I see the relics that are being ignored, and relics on characters who can solo a team are high priority relics. Kylo's mods are straightforward. Offense with a tenacity set is the consensus. With his unique unstoppable, he has stacking offense, so you want to help out that relationship by giving him additional offense. Plus, with his ability outrage, he's recovering protection based on the damage dealt. So the more damage he is doing, the more protection he is recovering. General Grievous. If you've had trouble cleaning up a solo Grievous, you understand how he can be an effective solo character. When he is below 100% health, he dispels debuffs so you can't control him. He lands healing immunity on his basic. With his special skittering horror, he is stunning and getting a bunch of health recovery. He does massive damage. He can be a huge threat in a solo capacity. In terms of his mods, he needs to have health set with health primaries, crit damage on the triangle at higher relic levels. What happens with high relic levels on a lot of these health characters, when you get to the higher levels, there's diminishing returns on some of the health, and you get a little bit more performance out of the damage. That is something we saw earlier when we were looking at Wampa. Now we're moving into the solos that have a little bit more risk to them. Jango isn't a solo you see me do in a 5v5 context unless it's a huge advantage, but in 3v3s, I like to bring him in as a Night Sister solo. Last time my Jango was at R3 and it would get a little scary from time to time, but it was pretty consistent. Now at R7, I think it's going to be a lot safer. The unique Zeta that prevents revives is what makes him great here. In 5v5, there are too many stuns against the Night Sisters and Jango will be taken out. But in 3v3, that's less of a problem, and Jango can nearly one-shot a number of enemies. Plus, with Bounty Hunter's Resolve, you get a number of chances to stay alive, recover Bounty Hunter's Resolve, and keep going if things get a little messy. So it's A little riskier. Most players might not do it. Maul, I don't think, was around then, so Maul might be begging for Jango, but this is one that you will see me use depending on the defensive strategy by my opponents. It's one that I like. It's fun to do. With Jango, the majority of top players have modded him for crit chance and crit damage. That is not how I've modded my Jango. Mine is modded for potency, and that's partly because I like to use him as a leader, and as a leader you want to make sure you're landing debuffs in order to get the contracts off. So this is one, figure out how you'd like to play it. I am not following the pack on this one. A year ago, Darth Vader was a spectacular solo character. Post-nerf, he's not as good. He used to just crush Geos. He still beats them fine, but it's not as dominating as it once was. With the right circumstances, I'll still bring him into solo. In a 3v3 context, it is a lot more likely to use him that way if you get a mismatch. The only problem is with Grand Arena 2.0, gross mismatches are not as common, and he's going to be pretty good on other squads. In terms of his mods, you should mod him the way that other people are modding him. That is not the way mine is modded, but that is more because I just don't have as many crit chance and crit damage mods as I would like, and what I do have are plenty of nice potency mods. I have crit chance on them, but I have crit chance and potency. That is what is going on in my case, if that's what you wanted to see. But I do recommend you use the consensus mod setup in his case. Count Dooku is a pretty nice solo character. He just has a lower ceiling than others, which brings him down for me. I should have him at higher relics. I don't. It's the free-to-play life. But if you have the Zeta on him, he's going to have a bunch of recovery, and that's going to make him a very effective solo character under the right circumstances. He has 100% counter chance. He's stunned, so he has a lot of control. He can prevent buffs by landing shock. He's a major nuisance. And up against rebel squads that don't have Captain Solo, because Captain Han can land daze, Dooku is just going to spread his stun around with his counters and become a nice little problem. In terms of his modding, speed and potency is what you want. Potency to land those debuffs, and speed to make sure he's constantly taking those turns. I don't have any 6-stop mods on this particular character that shows the frequency in which I rely on this kind of counter, and it's because free-to-play life, you can't 6-dot everything, and there's a certain threshold for what kind of mods I'm going to be taking up to 6 dots. And now for some honorable mentions, we need to talk about Fennec Shand. Last time we had 3v3, I think technically she was available for a week or two of it, but the sample size of using her as a solo wasn't really there in the searching that I did. In terms of 5v5, that's not how she's been being used. But the solo capabilities in her kit exist. And I think over this next course of 3v3, we're going to find that a lot of players start using Fennec as a 3v3 character. And she's a relic I'm looking to do for those purposes, also for her Lord Vader countering capabilities. Cyan has a lot of the pieces to be an effective solo character. It's not really how he's used. It's partly because he's a little bit more of a timeout threat than he is to win a battle. The Held by Hatred is going to keep him alive. He has enough recovery there. It's just whether or not the damage is there enough for him to be reliable in those circumstances. And now there aren't the gross mismatches that make using a character like him as viable as he would have been pre-Grand Arena 2.0. Darth Malgus I want to talk about because I think in the future he's going to be able to do a lot of the things that we're seeing with Malak or some of these other characters who can solo. the pieces are there for it. And Droideka, I want to mention. I'm going to put a link down under the video. I was trying to search for solos on YouTube. I came across a YouTube channel called Darth Millien, who was using Droideka to solo Darth Maul teams. Kind of a fun use. I don't know too much about it, but apparently it's there. Something fun to try if you have a Relic Droideka, which I don't. So this is the type of video I think I want to do more of in the future. Let me know in the comments if you found this interesting and want to see more like this. What I found interesting about it is building out this taxonomy of information. I want this channel to be a repository of information, and with this video we're highlighting a particular use of a character and showing those relationships throughout a roster that can be built out. The same can be done with different kit mechanics and looking at other aspects of characters and ships. So it's something that I think we'll be revisiting over the next couple of months. I'll do a few of these from time to time. So thank you for watching. This is Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes. Be safe out there, everyone, and be excellent to each other.